Hi guys, Trevor Swenson from Through the Darkness, a channel to discuss trauma and stressor related disorder, PTSD, unresolved trauma. And today I want to discuss a topic and put a little twist on a topic that is no stranger to those of us that have been diagnosed with trauma and stressor disorder or who have PTSD, and that's the topic of suffering. Lots of fun to talk about that, huh? Whether your suffering is emotional, physical, psychological, whatever the suffering is very, very real. And it's very much at the surface. And if you are like me, it is a daily battle. I will tell you today when I got up was one of those days that I just felt not well at all. Not well physically, not well emotionally, not well psychologically. A great day to suffer. The topic of today's discussion is a challenge to suffer well, that it matters how we suffer. And I want to challenge you to think about how your personal suffering has manifested itself in your life, specifically through other people. I want to ask you the question, and all of us have screwed up and gone down this road, but some of us may be stuck on that road, and I'm going to challenge you to take a hard left and get off the road. And the question is how has your trauma, your unresolved trauma or your diagnosed trauma or your PTSD had an effect on other people for the worse? It's very easy when you are suffering to be snarky, to be crabby, to be flat out angry, to have your words and actions play out in a negative way to those people that are closest to you. And I just want to ask this simple question, that if you were to ask two healthy people that don't deal with what we deal with, the question of, is it better if somebody has gone through something traumatic and it has injured them severely? Is it better that they project it onto other people around them, or is it better that the trauma ends with that particular person? And really that's what today's discussion comes down to, is challenging ourselves to make sure that in the people that we come into contact with, that we make a conscious effort to suffer well. What does suffering well look like? Well, I can tell you for myself what suffering well looks like means treating people better than you are feeling at any given moment in your suffering process. Suffering sucks. Depression sucks. Anxiety sucks. Hyper-vigilance sucks. Flashbacks suck. Our losses, whether they be financial or emotional or physical or relational, they all suck. And my challenge is to allow the suck to end with you. It matters how we suffer. It really matters. My eyes were open to this over time. And the number one example for me as to how noble it is to suffer well, and I've been open about it in my other videos, is when we look at Christ. Christ suffered for you. He suffered for me, our present, our past, and our future sins. And when you read the Gospels like a child, you see a man who was the example of how to suffer. And I'm okay with working hard to be the example that he was through my suffering. So what do? I will tell you that it is top of the mind awareness for me now to think about how I'm feeling and immediately how it might play out to those people around me. First and foremost, those people immediately around me. How easy is it for me to be snarky with my wife and to write it off as, well, that's how I'm feeling today because I'm feeling pretty angry and pretty resentful about what I went through. How easy is it for me to snap at my kids and say, well, if you were going through what I'm going through, you'd understand why I'm snapping at you. How easy is it for me to treat somebody that I don't even know, a perfect stranger, rudely or arrogantly or in an entitled manner, simply because those are the feelings that are at the surface for me at that particular moment. It doesn't make what we're walking through, the suffering that we're walking through, any less real or any less painful. That doesn't go away. But what we choose to do with that suffering matters. And it matters for our own well-being, and it matters because other people matter. They matter to God. When I bring out the example of the perfect gem, which I just happen to have with me, when I think of this perfect gem, I remember, and I'm forced to think about, that when God looks at other people, this is what he sees. He sees all of us, every single one of us, no matter how we feel about ourselves, no matter how we feel other people feel about ourselves. This is how he looks at us, perfectly and wonderfully made for a specific purpose here in this lifetime. And when you have that as top of the mind awareness, I hope that it challenges you to think about how your suffering is being acted out, or how your unresolved trauma is being acted out towards other people. You have one of two choices, essentially. And let's use a childhood example. Let's say that you were unfortunate enough to grow up in a household that was either abusive or unbelievably dysfunctional when it came to love and acceptance. You have the choice to walk out life every day in a little way or in a big way, allowing people to feel your pain or to feel what that felt like to grow up that way. Or you have the opportunity to look at it as, I experienced that, and I will do everything in my power with everybody that I come into contact with to never have to experience the pain and the suffering that I am personally going through. That is noble and that is admirable. I will tell you that this plays itself out in the professional environment, how you treat coworkers or people that you lead. This plays out in the family, how you treat your kids and how you treat your spouse. This plays out in friendships. This plays out in the general public. Every time that I run into somebody that meets me with anger or rudeness or a sense of entitlement or hurt, my mind now, because of PTSD, immediately shifts to brokenness. Where is this coming from? Because trauma and suffering, their fruits are not good if we allow them to come to fruition, if you will. And we have a choice in the matter. And my challenge to you is to allow the choice to be, I am going to suffer well. And I will tell you that through my professional career, the choice that I made consciously, and it was very, very difficult because of my PTSD, because of the trauma and stressor related disorder, it was very, very difficult to make the conscious effort to not allow my hurt to be dumped on, put on, spoken over other people, because it's right there. Your hurt is right there. The hurtful comment, the action, the how you're feeling, the what you want to say is right there. Mad is easy. Sad and grief is difficult, which is one of the reasons that we see so much anger in today's society and why it's so hard to heal in such a toxic society and environment. And what it's going to take from you and what it's going to take from me is the conscious effort to suffer well. And if you haven't suffered well, if people around you point out that you don't suffer well, that you are hurting them and that you are hurting others and that you are hurting yourself, that's okay. There's great power in the phrase, I'm sorry, and will you forgive me? And start over today and start thinking about suffering well. We have the best example ever in the history of mankind in Christ and how he suffered in betrayal, in rejection, in physical torment, and in death for people that didn't treat him well at all, that he had every right to mistreat and to take it out on, and he didn't. And I'm okay with following that example in my journey with PTSD and trauma and stressor disorder. And remember, it doesn't take away your suffering, but it is my belief that making a choice to suffer well is not only noble and admirable, but it is also healing to your soul. I know that the times that I have felt the most like lashing out or the most human, if you will, in my reactions and choosing not to do that and looking at what it could have done to another person to no fault of their own whatsoever, think about how powerful that is. Now, I don't want you to spend time in regret, thinking about the times that you've allowed your own personal tragedy, trauma, suffering, mistreatment to play itself out in other people in a negative way. Don't focus on that. Focus on making a change today that you are going to suffer well for yourself and for the benefit of others, and know that it is my personal belief that it matters to God, your creator, my creator. It matters to him how we suffer, and we see that through his very own son, who was God in the flesh, in the example on how to suffer. We are to have a soft heart towards those who suffer, and we are not to project our suffering onto other people. And it's very, very difficult. Nobody said that it would be easy. Our suffering is still very, very real. We still deal with the very, very, very real manifestation of the trauma that we have been through in our life. But choose consciously the opposite. Choose to love, choose to edify, choose to build up, and choose to suffer well. I hope you take my challenge seriously. I really feel like you will see the fruits of that labor play out in outstanding ways that are very admirable and very noble, despite your suffering, despite your unresolved trauma, despite your diagnosis with PTSD. Choose to suffer well. God sees it. There isn't anything that he doesn't know about your situation. There isn't anything you know about that he doesn't know about what you're going through. He knows your pain. He feels your pain. And he loves you just as much no matter where you're at in your spiritual walk. I hope that today's message was encouraging. I hope today's message gave you hope. I hope it was challenging, and I hope you put it into practice. Suffer well. It matters how we suffer. Allow the trauma, allow the pain, allow the suffering to stop with you. And use the words, I'm sorry. Use the words, please forgive me. And wake up every single day knowing that you are not going to project onto, through, or into other people the suffering, which is already more than enough in PTSD, into others. I can't wait to see you next time. Please click subscribe, hit the notification, forward this to somebody that might be hurting. My purpose in this is to be open and to be honest and to help people with the very challenging journey of PTSD and to give hope towards healing and recovery. Take care and be well. I can't wait to see you next time.